There's breaking news here on Capitol Hill tonight as we are nearly one full day into the government shutdown, as we've now heard from House Speaker Mike Johnson's office, who tells us that the new Congresswoman-elect, Adelita Grijalva, will be sworn in when the House returns to session next week. We spoke with Speaker Johnson last night about the House and when they're coming back. Democrats have been here, but he has not required House Republicans to be here. And here's the reason this matters and why this will be so significant, because Grijalva is expected to provide what is going to be a pivotal vote to force the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files currently held by the Justice Department. It's a vote that for several weeks and months, Speaker Johnson has resisted. Joining me tonight is a member of the House Oversight Committee, Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. And I just wonder, this has been a big thing that a lot of Democrats have been asking about, I know. What's your reaction to Speaker Johnson's announcement about swearing her in next week?
Yeah, it sounds like they finally twisted somebody's arm to get off the discharge petition. Our Representative-elect Grijalva will be signature number 218, forcing every single member in the House, Democrats and Republicans, to take a vote on the release of the Epstein files. And interestingly enough, a lot of people have asked, do you think that the shutdown is a distraction from this? And part of it, I think anything that the president can do to get people to distract from Epstein, he's going to do it. But the fact that he's willing to swear her in now almost convinces me that the White House has twisted somebody to jump off so that we still will be down and not have the full 218.
Because there were, was it 3 House Republicans who were?
4.
Well, Thomas Massey, they're not going to get him to.
They're not going to get him, no.
But there were a few others that there were questions of the White House.
Marjorie is one of them.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, I believe, was one other.
Nancy.
In terms of trying to get
Anna
them
Paulina
to change their
Luna,
minds.
I think, is the other one.
So you think that maybe this means the White House successfully convinced one of them to,
I do.
to change that?
I
so
do.
Does that mean that you think that ultimately this vote won't be successful?
Well, we won't even have a vote. So if we don't have the full 218 signatures, then we won't be able to put it on the floor for a vote. If we get it to the floor for a vote, it'll pass. And I think it'll pass with more than the 218 that it took for the discharge petition, because I don't think some people want to be on record as voting to support pedophiles, even though we know in their actions they are absolutely supporting pedophiles.
So if your instinct bears out, what happens then with this
well,
big
we have
push?
another special election that's coming up. We've got another 2 special elections coming up, one in Tennessee for a Republican seat, and maybe we'll have a miracle since Democrats have been overperforming by approximately no less than 10 points. And then we have a special election for a Democratic seat down in Houston.
Okay, and I'm not sure if you saw this today. People in the White House certainly saw this interview that the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick did with the New York Post, where he was actually talking about Jeffrey Epstein. He was had long had a house next to his in New York, and he was talking about this moment when he and his wife met Jeffrey Epstein, and this is what Howard Lutnick had to say.
I say to him, massage table in the middle of your house? How often you have a massage? And he says, every day. And then he gets weirdly close to me.
Ooh.
And he says, and the right kind of massage. And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. That's what his MO was, get a massage, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume, was on video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever.
Now, on that front, he suggested that the prosecutors struck an agreement with Jeffrey Epstein because he handed over videos of people getting massages at his house. Some of the people he named denied that, I should note. But I wonder the White House was kind of irritated, I think. Some people in the White House, I'll say, by that interview, because obviously this is not something they want to talk about. What's your take on that interview?
I had an opportunity to sit down in the transcribed interview of Alex Acosta. And so I was able to actually do my lawyering as I was asking him questions about why it is that he decided to basically give out a sweetheart deal, a deal that he says even today, when he looks back, he doesn't look at it as a sweetheart deal. Now, his excuse was that the victims just weren't credible enough. He felt like they had credibility issues. He felt like they would be impeached. And it was very weird for me to hear as someone who has been a defense attorney, who has had to defend against these kind of cases. Usually it is a prosecutor's dream because most juries want to believe, especially a child victim, they never want to get it wrong. And so it is very difficult to overcome that. And so he wasn't giving me satisfactory answers. But, you know, listening to that, it seems like, much like my own gut in this particular case, there was more than enough to go after Epstein, and there was just a lot that Alex wasn't telling us.
So this all comes, you're talking about this potentially being tied to the government shutdown. Right now, neither chamber is in session here. As you know, it's very quiet here on Capitol Hill tonight. What we've seen, though, from the White House is not silence. They are actually, you know, using all of their government websites to say this is Democrats pushing this shutdown. I think we can show you some of those websites showing these messages, blaming Democrats for this shutdown, HUD, DOJ, State Department, Agriculture. Do you think that they're being more effective in their messaging in terms of putting this blame on Democrats?
I think they're being a lot more illegal in their messaging. The first thing that I wanted to know was, how can this not be a violation of the Hatch Act in some way, right? Because we are not allowed to politic on official sites, period, right? And that's what they're doing. They literally change official government websites to put out their propaganda. Instead of just saying we're currently in a shutdown, you decided to play partisan politics on an official website. And I guess there is no limit to what they won't do, because they do the exact same thing when we walk into committee. Instead of us having real committee hearings where we are actually able to get information that may somehow help the American people understand what's going on, instead, it's always a campaign rally that they're doing when we walk into committee, and it's more spewing of their propaganda. So I don't think that they're being more effective. I think that they are being more illegal in the ways that they're going about making sure that they can push out the information. I think that the American people are smart. You know, as I was sitting here waiting to come on, I was going through my email, and almost at the top of my email was an email from a federal worker that said, "Keep up the great work. We will be okay. This is too important." So even in this moment, we are getting emails, or at least I am, from federal workers that understand the sacrifice that is happening right now. But this idea that, you know, the retribution is going to be that since the government is shut down, then we're going to call in his henchman, Russell Vought, so that he can go and do what he's been doing. But he's been doing that with no permission. We've had to go to court, I don't know how many times, to say, no, you were wrong. You can't fire those people. So what difference does it make? They have consistently violated the law, whether it was statute or whether it was the Constitution. There is nothing different about this. In addition to the fact, when we're talking about violating law, how about impoundment? The very first thing that we talked about when we first got in is that there have been laws that have been signed into law. And what did they do? They sent in Elon Musk, and he started illegally just deciding he wasn't going to send out certain dollars today that people are still missing, that we had appropriated. So what assurances do we have if we entered into an agreement with these Republicans that they wouldn't go back on their word and just say, oh yeah, we'll sign off on a rescissions package, everything that the Democrats fought for, such as health care assurances around the Affordable Care Act? Yeah, we'll make sure that that holds. We don't have any assurances.
We've seen that argument from other Democrats. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, thank you for joining us tonight.
It's good to see you.